History repeats itself, first as tragedy, then as farce. Today what we've seen in the national capital, when a farmer hung himself from a tree and committed suicide, was a bit of both. There was an element of tragedy and there was certainly an element of farce. The tragedy was that one more anonymous Indian has been added to the growing statistics of farmers who've committed suicide. Some NCRB figures, National Crime Research Bureau figures, show that in the last decade alone, almost 2 lakh farmers have committed suicide. 2 lakh farmers in this country. And we talk about India being a nation of kisans. The tragedy was that the world was watching while this man committed suicide today. The tragedy was that there was a political rally going on while this man committed suicide. The tragedy was that the police kept watching while this man committed suicide. The tragedy was that the Aam Aadmi Party was continuing with its rally when a man committed suicide. The farce now. The farce is the manner in which our politicians have reacted to what happened to this one individual. The manner in which almost peoply live-like comments were made after the man was found dead. Should the Chief Minister climb a tree? Said one AAP leader. Is this a conspiracy? Suggested Somnath Bharti of the Aam Aadmi Party. Ashutosh of the Aam Aadmi Party almost sarcastically remarked, well, next time this happens, the Chief Minister will climb a tree. These comments reflect very poorly. These comments certainly don't suggest that the Aam Aadmi Party showed the necessary sensitivity to what had happened. I'm not saying that a political party is responsible for the death of that farmer today. Let's not engage in a political blame game. That's not going to end this cycle of deaths of farmers in the country. But surely greater sensitivity is called for when someone has just hung himself. And surely political parties need to empathize to a much greater extent than they do. I'm told that several political parties went to the hospital to find out what had happened. Do these parties go and their leaders go when, as I said, more than 2 lakh farmers have committed suicide over the last decade? These are some of the questions that I'd like to ask. I'd like to ask them of our netas. I'd like to ask them of the netas of my home state of Maharashtra, where more than 60,000 farmers have committed suicide since 1995. There have been Congress NCP governments for a major part. There have also been BJP Shiv Sena governments there. Has anyone done enough to really stop this cycle of violence? And I use the word violence because the death of a farmer, to my mind, in the manner that it's taking place, is a form of violence. And it's a form of violence that is still not hitting the conscience of the average Indian. There are very few journalists, a few like P. Sainath, who have written extensively on this. But for a majority, these are just invisible faces that just don't register on the media map. Does it take the death of a farmer outside Parliament, hanging from a tree in Jantar Mantar, for the national conscience to wake up, for our political conscience to wake up, for our media conscience to wake up? A couple of weeks ago, we started this series called Killing Fields, pointing out that this is the biggest issue confronting the country today. At that time, I remember someone telling me, "Yaar, there are no TRPs in covering this issue." Honestly, that's what I was told. Well, let's be clear. There may be no TRPs in covering a farmer's suicide, but surely there's a conscience that must in some way be aroused every time a Kisan commits suicide. This cycle of rural indebtedness, caused at times by unseasonal rain, caused at times by the high price of inputs, of fertilizers. Urea today is selling in black money, falling farm incomes, rising costs of seeds. Should these issues not be debated? Should we in the media, myself included, not spend a greater time focusing on these issues? If we really want to pay tribute today to a young man who has died in unfortunate circumstances, then that is the only tribute that we can pay. Start paying greater consciousness to agrarian issues and bring them on prime time, keep them on the front page so that the national conscience is aroused, not just when a farmer commits suicide outside Jantar Mantar, but when he does it in remote Vidarbha or he does it in remote Chhattisgarh or in any village in this country. I pay my respects and condole with the family of the farmer, and my heart goes out to all those families who've lost their dear ones simply because agriculture, it appears, for many is no longer as lucrative as it once was. If you have a question, if you believe, and my big question to you is, what will it take to stop this endless cycle of deaths of our farmers? That's the question I want to ask you. If you want to respond, do respond on rajdeepsardesai.net. Let's carry forward this conversation.